himself from getting any points in that race. And like, I don't know if I've seen make a mistake like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the guy to correct you, but there were two things that happened there, Gregor, that Verstappen went out after a blown tire. So he was leading the race. Yeah. He was on his way to victory, driving on a straightaway, didn't do anything. It was 100% not the fault of the driver. His tire just blew at 300 plus kilometers an hour, fenced the car, and that was the end of the day for him. Then, later on they red flagged the race, forced all the teams came back to the pits, which in Formula One, it still doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because when they, like in other conventional forms of racing, IndyCar, NASCAR, when you get red flagged, you're not allowed to touch the car. In Formula One, you can change the tires, you can fix the car, you can put different body work on, you can do all kinds of things under a red flag, which is kind of counterintuitive to my way of thinking. But they red flagged, they made all the changes to the cars, went back out, and then for Hamilton and the Mercedes team, they have a feature on their car, and most F1 teams have stuff like this, but they have what's called brake magic. And what brake magic is a setting on the car. So there's the teams rely on what's called brake bias. So what the brake bias is basically the amount of the percentage of brake that you split between the front tires and the rear tires. Generally speaking, an F1 car will run between about 58 to 65% front brakes, depending on what the car is and the comfort level of the driver. But when they do a warm-up phase, which is what these guys had to do, they came out of the pits and they really try hard to get their front tires warmed up. Mercedes has this brake magic setting, which overrides the default brake bias, the maximum default settings. They'll go up to like 80, 85, 90% front brakes to allow, in the braking zones, when you're expecting it and that's what the case is, you lift off the throttle early, you spend a lot of time on the brakes in a straight line, but that the front brakes are going to be the things to lock up, and you're accelerating gradually and then stopping fairly aggressively, but you expect it. Get all that heat in the front tires. On the restart, Hamilton had, one of the best starts of his career, launches the car, was able to not only catch, but get ahead of Perez. In that moment, the race was basically won for Hamilton, which was, going from fighting for third place, and losing points in the drivers and constructors championship, to you've got the race won, to you hit the brakes and car locks and drives off. And basically what they said happened, looking at the telemetry, was that somewhere in, like, after he launched, he re-engaged that brake magic setting, which overrode the brake bias. When the car gets up to speed and all you have is front brakes, you don't have enough braking to slow the car down, and that's how you go from third to first, and then you're way out of the points, which obviously was less than ideal for these guys.
At the end of the day, Sergio Perez gets the victory. Are you seeing him? He's taking advantage of some of these miscues that other people are having over the course of their races.
Racing is full of cliches, and to finish first, you must first finish is one of the most overused ones. But he really didn't put a wheel wrong all weekend. I'm not a big fan of Red Bull, but I really love Perez, as he's known as Checo. Because even by guys tend to have revisionist history when things go their way, where it's like, we knew we were going to be there at the end, and he said, like, I didn't deserve this win, this probably should have been a Verstappen win, and he also knew that he got beat off the line, so he wasn't crowing and tooting his own horn, but at the same time, he didn't make a mistake. He was there at the end and, took advantage of it. And, like we talked last week about, hopefully there's some eventful thing, hopefully there's going to be some excitement in the weekend. And, Just as soon as you think that the race is sorted, there's something that happens that, that shakes the whole thing up. And, we saw that through multiple series on the weekend.
Colin Livingston joins us from the CanTorque Racing Report. But hey, it made for very interesting racing. I'll say that. Oh, yeah. Now, IndyCar, we got the doubleheader weekend in Detroit. Johnson and Grosjean will be back after sitting out the oval race of the 500. What do you like, Jimmy Johnson? I know it's only been a few races, but what are you kind of expecting him as far as improvement?
Hopefully, if he can be with one of the main packs by the end of the year, I think he will have done an exceptional job. Grosjean, obviously he's a road racer, so this is not new for him. But yeah, I mean, Johnson is putting the time in and he's working his backside off. I mean, they had more tests over the last 2 weeks, trying to get him more time, trying to get him, more data feedback. He is not, he's another one that's not really, making excuses for why he's not up there. He's saying like, this is way harder than it looks, that these cars are way, way, way more physical than anyone really understands. And, and you have to face the fact that the guys that are in the series are excellent drivers. These guys are no schmucks just because they're not in Formula One or they're not, on the big stage in NASCAR. Like the guys that are in IndyCar, you could put them in any other series and in equal cars. These guys should be able to perform because, their skill set is so high. This weekend, not really expecting a lot of excitement from the race in Detroit. I mean, it's always a fun race to watch, but it's another, street type circuit where there's not going to be an awful lot of passing. Or if the passes happen, it's during pit stops and, using, push to pass. But at the same time, it's just going to be fun to see IndyCar back on, road street course again.
What do you mean now, Livingston, by Jimmy Johnson feels it's more physical? What does that mean in racing terms?
Well, I mean, he made his bones in NASCAR. No disrespect to NASCAR guys. The drivers in all forms of NASCAR really up their game physically. And Johnson was no slouch. I mean, I've seen his workout program. You could put him in a marathon tomorrow and he'll finish competitively. He'll do Ironman. Like he's in great shape, but the amount of strength it takes to drive a stock car is nothing like what it takes to drive an open wheel car. They're different animals. Stock car is pretty consistent for the load that it puts on the body. You get a little bit more lateral G loading when you get in a corner than on a straightaway. There's not a lot of big braking zones. And even when these guys race on road courses, these cars are so damned heavy, they don't stop aggressively. Like, one of these days, if I ever get the chance, I'll put you guys in our 2-seat stock car. We could go around, Castro Motor Speedway, and it's a pretty good ride, and it opens your eyes up a little bit, but it's not going to knock you around too much, and you're not going to walk away feeling like you really got beat up. When you get in an Indy car and you experience -5G, lateral 4G, followed by positive 3G as you come out of a corner, it's indescribably difficult. And the Indy car doesn't have power steering. So everything you do is driver input, where, stock cars have power steering. And again, I'm not saying a stock car is easy to drive, but it's just not as physical. The big challenge with a stock car is putting up with the heat.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. When the heat for a lot of people, I think mentally more than anything, physically would be a huge challenge for that. Now, what about karting? Now, remember Luca Corderi? He was the guy who threw the bumper to another competitor and everything. And I said he was embarrassed. Well, he got handed a 15-year ban from racing. Now, I know he's appealing it, but what do you think? There's any chance he comes back and remotely even gets that appeal reduced?
I honestly hope not. I mean, I've been following this fairly closely because obviously karting's really, really close to my heart. But when he got out of that situation, was interviewed, said, I'm super embarrassed. I take full responsibility. I am vowing to never, ever race again. It took the FIA, the FIA karting side this long to actually implement the penalty, and all of a sudden it's a 15-year ban, which means he could come back within his lifetime, and now he's saying he wants to appeal it. So I'm not really understanding what the rationale is from, I'll never race again to, yeah, I think 15 years is too long. The kind of behavior that they showed, it wasn't really so much about chucking the bumper at another competitor, which is obviously a terrible thing to do, especially because it looked like it hit one of his teammates and he missed the guy he was trying to go after. It was the fact that these guys physically assaulted another driver. And when I say these guys, this is the family that owned the Lonato track in Italy. And it was this Luca Corderi and his father that physically assaulted a child. I call him a child. This guy was the other driver wasn't 5 feet tall. These guys are almost 6 feet tall, and both of them made physical runs at this guy in the paddock by, blindsiding and tackling another driver. Like, that kind of behavior just doesn't have a place, especially in karting, but at any level of racing. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully the FIA stands their ground, and this guy gets, made an example of, because again, really no place, for that. I mean, we have officials for a reason. Let them do their job, and you don't need to be judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah, no, totally fair. And what about the local karting scene? You guys getting back on track?
We don't have the green light yet, but now that we've got phase 2, I think if everything goes to plan, we should be racing by next week. So that'll be good to really start, figuring out what these new karts have to offer, and whether the old body is going to be ready to perform for another year.
Yeah, well, keep doing your barbell squats, and then you'll be in there.
Yeah. You're welcome to join anytime, man. I mean, you love to chat the chat, but we can go side by side in the gym anytime you want. I'd love some company.
Whoa. Hey, dude, that's no problem. I get it. I wasn't chirping you. I was actually complimenting you on doing it.
Oh, not this time, but there's been chirps in the past.
Not necessarily certain about the slow motion video. I think that might be a little bit too much. Like, you're not doing like a song intro. Just keep it at normal speed here.
Yeah, you can talk to Antonio. He just happened to flip the wrong setting. That was not done by design.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. Have yourself a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
That's a Colin Livingston in the Racing Report.